You have probably stepped into an elevator many times without thinking about it. The doors open, and the floor of the elevator is perfectly level with the building floor. You walk in or out easily. It feels normal. We usually assume the elevator just stops where it should, every time. But if you stop and think for a moment, this is not as simple as it seems. The elevator cannot see the floor. It is moving inside a tall, empty space. So how does it know exactly when to stop? How does it avoid stopping too high or too low? And how did elevators do this in the past, before computers were common? Let's take a calm and simple look at how elevators solve this everyday problem. First, it is important to understand one thing. Elevators do not guess where to stop. They do not use a timer, and they do not just count floors like a human would. Instead, elevators always know where they are. They use sensors to measure their position inside the elevator shaft. These sensors send information to the elevator's control system, which decides when to slow down and when to stop. This is how elevators stop at the right place again and again. In the early days of elevators, things worked very differently. Long ago, elevators were controlled by people, not machines. A trained elevator operator stood inside the elevator and used a lever to move it up and down. The operator had to slow the elevator at the right moment and stop it carefully. This took skill and practice. If the elevator stopped a little too high or too low, the operator would warn passengers to watch their step. This worked, but it was not very safe or consistent. When automatic elevators were introduced, engineers had to replace the human operator with a system that could do the same job. Their solution was simple but clever. They placed special markers inside the elevator shaft at each floor level. In early elevators, these were mechanical switches. When the elevator moved past a switch, the switch would send a signal. One switch was placed before the floor to tell the elevator to start slowing down. This helped make the ride smooth. Another switch was placed at the exact floor level. When the elevator reached this switch, it received the signal to stop. By carefully placing these switches, engineers made sure the elevator would stop very close to the floor level. These early systems were adjusted by technicians. During installation, workers would move the switches slightly up or down and test the elevator again and again. If the elevator stopped too high or too low, the switch would be moved until the stop was just right. Even then, a very small difference was acceptable. Being off by a few millimeters was usually not noticeable. However, elevators do not always carry the same weight. A full elevator is heavier than an empty one. A heavy elevator can move a little farther before stopping. Engineers knew this and designed elevators to stop carefully. It was better for an elevator to stop slightly early and slowly move into position than to overshoot and come back. This is why some older elevators feel like they stop, then gently move a little before the doors open. As technology improved, elevators stopped using mechanical switches and started using electronic sensors. Modern elevators use magnetic or optical sensors instead. Small magnets are placed at each floor level inside the shaft. Sensors on the elevator detect these magnets as they pass. One magnet tells the elevator to slow down. Another tells it exactly where the floor is. These sensors are very reliable. They do not wear out easily, and they are not affected much by dust or dirt. Because of this, modern elevators can stop with very high accuracy. In addition to these floor sensors, many elevators also measure how far they have moved. They use a device called an encoder which is attached to the motor or pulley. As the elevator moves, the encoder counts tiny movements, much like a bicycle speed counter. This allows the elevator to always know roughly how high it is. The elevator combines information from both systems. The encoder tells it how far it has traveled, and the floor sensors confirm its exact position. This way, the elevator always knows where it is inside the building. All this information goes to the elevator's control system. This is like a small computer. It constantly checks the elevator's speed and position. As the elevator approaches the target floor, the system tells the motor to slow down smoothly. At the exact right moment, it applies the brakes, so the elevator stops level with the floor. Modern elevators can adjust their speed many times each second. This makes the ride smooth and the stop very precise. Most people do not even notice the stopping process. The doors open, and the elevator is already perfectly aligned. Different types of elevators use similar ideas. Cable elevators use motors and sensors to control movement. Hydraulic elevators, which use fluid, pressure, also use sensors to measure position. In hydraulic systems, temperature can affect how the elevator moves, so the control system adjusts for this. Even if the elevator drifts slightly over time, it can re-level itself before opening the doors. Regular maintenance is important. Over time, sensors can shift slightly, or parts can wear down. Technicians check and adjust these systems to keep elevators stopping safely and accurately. If an elevator often stops unevenly, it means the system needs attention. So, how does an elevator know when to stop exactly at a floor? The simple answer is this: it always knows where it is. Sensors measure its position, and a control system decides when to slow down and stop. The elevator does not rely on luck or guesswork. It uses careful measurement and smart control. This accuracy matters more than we might think. If an elevator stopped even a little too high or too low, people could trip. Wheelchairs and carts could have trouble entering or leaving. By stopping within a few millimeters of the floor, elevators keep everyone safe and comfortable. The next time you step into an elevator and walk out without noticing anything special, remember that a lot of careful engineering made that moment smooth and safe. The elevator stopping perfectly is not magic. It is the result of simple ideas used very carefully.